Hi there. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Woolfer TV. I'm Susan Povich, and I am happy and terrified to be here. I have never live streamed anything before. I have never interviewed anyone who is not applying for a cook, server, or dishwasher position. And I'm interviewing one of my current idols, Jong-Fast. I'm asking for patience and leniency for any grammatical errors, cursing, or failure to remember my children's name. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with Molly Jong-Fast, author of numerous books and articles, liberal pundit, podcaster extraordinaire, and all-around gal about Zoom. Currently, Molly hosts the podcast, The New Abnormal, with Rick Wilson, and is an editor and writer for The Daily Beast, Vogue, The Bulwark, The Atlantic, and every other publication I cruise everything single day. She's a member of the Twitterati, a mother of three, and apparently an animal lover. Molly, welcome, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to chat with me about the sideshow that is our American democratic system.
Yeah.
But first, let's talk about you. I want to know a little bit about your pandemic experience because it's getting long and it's getting tiring, and I think all of us are about to jump out of our skin. So, what is your favorite pandemic snack or treat?
I muted myself because one of my kids is using the printer right next to me while we're doing this, which is welcome to my world. I think he's almost done though, so you'll just have to listen.
It sounds like a dot matrix printer.
It's you know what? I have such bad printer luck. This is like my 15th for every printer. I feel like printers are literally created just to break.
Yeah, I bought a new fancy one and broke it the first day.
You owe me.
So anyway,
okay. So
about the pandemic. I know I did some research. Yeah. I know that you are sober. My husband's been sober for 35 years, so I live with a sober person, and I know that you were not drinking Negronis during pandemic. So what are you filling the void with? What is your favorite snack?
So I have taken two. Is that it? There's more?
Way more.
What is wrong with you? Why
do you just print stuff for my ACQ work?
This is such a good time for you to do it. Thank you. So I love cake. Like my religion is cake. So I eat a lot of cake, and I order this cake from Goldbelly that's made by the Cake Boss. So I order it. I think we need a new printer cartridge. And so I do that a lot, and I love cake. I'm gonna have to put more ink in the printer.
No, it just can't say.
Well, do you need this for? You need this for the tutor. I can make do without. I'll hold on. I'll put more printer in. Okay, I'll put more.
No, it's sort of weird to start halfway through. I'll be fine.
No, I'll print out more stuff.
Yeah, no, it's more important that I get the stuff done.
Take the other stuff. Okay, sorry. Okay. All killing it. So maybe we can cut this out when it goes up. Sorry about that. So I love cake. I eat a lot of cake. I eat a lot of ice pops. I eat a lot of ice. I eat a lot of sugar. I'm like a bad influence. No one wants to be like me.
My husband has a sugar thing too. And I did notice there was a period of time when he had devolved into Oreos, and at the same time he started watching Fox News. So I got a little
concerned. Not good.
No, he came out of it. I started baking like homemade baked goods to get him out of the funk, and then he stopped watching Fox News. So I've definitely sort of seen a sort of junk food, processed food dynamic with Fox News viewing, which I've been thinking about a lot, because.
And this is Leonidas, my new rescue puppy.
I heard my son got a rescue puppy at college. I'm not so excited about him bringing it home. So did you have any hobbies that you started and then gave up on 2 weeks later?
Yes. Well, not 2 weeks. I did a couple of years of needlepoint, but I don't do it right now.
In the pandemic, did you I was going to teach myself to play guitar for the 8th time, and it lasted 2 weeks.
I didn't do any. The thing I did during the pandemic, besides this, who I love and who's my third dog. By the way, it turns out when you get a third dog, it becomes a wolf pack, and it becomes
you're out of it.
Right. Like we had 2 dogs and I was like, oh, what's one more? It completely changes the dynamic and makes everyone insane.
Absolutely.
So
And they rule. They dominate at that point, right?
Yeah. So, but so I don't like, I mean, I think the thing I started during the pandemic was the podcast.
With the podcast.
Right. Because I had some time and I wasn't traveling. And so that has been really fun for me and has been just like a really good outlet. You know, what's funny is because this is such a tough time. I mean, I was watching these Amy Coney Barrett hearings and it's just so grim. And because it's such a tough time, when you get to be able to express yourself, it's really wonderful. Like it ends up being like a lot of my friends are so depressed and it's hard. And like I'm depressed too, but I feel like I'm able to talk about it. And that's really great. You know,
it's
and
cathartic. Yeah. That's why I listen to the podcast where I don't necessarily learn anything new, but it's funny and it's snarky and it makes me feel like there are other people out there that are like me who are also sort of grappling with that. Can we touch upon the podcast? Because I don't even know how I discovered it, but I started listening and now it's like, it makes my day every time the podcast drops. But, you know, it's a conversation between you and Rick Wilson. I mean, Rick Wilson made ads for Rudy Giuliani and Marco Rubio. I'm wondering about these never Trumper Republicans, these Republicans that are now supporting Biden. And I'm just wondering if you think, and you clearly talk to Rick a lot, and he's a smart, funny guy, and I think his heart's in the right place. But are you concerned that these sort of Republicans are going to come in and have the effect of chilling the progressive aims of the Democrat? I mean, will they turn against us and support Nikki Haley for president as soon as we expand Medicaid, offer a universal basic income, or federal oversight of policing?
It's certainly possible. I mean, I don't have, you know, I think what they're doing, you know, I don't have a ton of skin in that game. Like, I think what they're doing with those ads are good against Trump. I don't know what they're going to do. And I don't, you know, like I'm close with a lot of those people and I appreciate them and think they're very smart. Do I think that they're ideologically aligned with me? No. Like, I think for now they hate Trump, which is good. But, you know, are they going to be on board with a, you know, a public option? I don't know. And I don't know that it necessarily matters for right now. It's certainly something to think about. I don't think they're going to have a lot of power in the Democratic Party. That's my sense, because none of them are elected and none of them are really, you know, involved in the legislature. Now, the way in which they could have power is if they could convince Democrats that they know how to win, which
they do.
Right. Well, we'll see. Right? We don't know. Right. So that's why I'm not so worried about that. The thing that's important to remember is that Democrats are a much larger group than conservatives. So there are many, many, many more. I feel like never Trump Republicans are such a small group. I mean, they relate to a larger situation in the Republican Party of Republicans abandoning Trumpism because it's so disgusting. But, you know, I'm not so worried. I don't think they're going to go into the Democratic. I don't think they're going to be able to go into the Democratic Party and change things. I don't know if that's their desire because I don't really know what they think, but I don't think, I mean, a lot of these people don't consider themselves to be Democrats. So that I think will make it less likely for them to be able to go in there. But I also think that, you know, I think a lot about the people at the Bulwark where I still write sometimes. And I think a lot about, like, ideologically, in some ways, we're aligned. But had Bernie Sanders been the pick, I would have gotten on board. I mean, you know, there are things I don't love about Bernie, but there's a lot of stuff to love about Bernie. And Bernie has been an unbelievably good surrogate for Joe Biden. I mean,
he has. I wish he had done it for Hillary Clinton.
Right. But I mean, he's been so, you know, will the Democratic Party go more Bernie? I hope they will too. I mean, people want healthcare, right?
Yeah. I mean, number one, people want healthcare. We have to solve this problem. It's a human right. And for some reason, we deny it to
And the
half our population.
Republican case against healthcare is so lame. I mean, I was listening to these hearings today, and Chuck Grassley was saying, well, if you give people health care, you'll have to ration it. I'm thinking, if people don't have anything and you're threatening the chance of rationing, like, fuck you. So that's why I do hope look, in my mind, I love Biden. I'm very happy that he's the nominee. I'm thrilled to get to vote for him. Do I hope that the Democratic Party will go more left than this? Yeah, I think most Democrats do. But for now, you have to love the one you're with, and this is where we are. And this is
I mean, I like to say about Biden, he's like 2% milk. He's not like whole milk that has a lot of flavor or skim milk that's diet. He's kind of like 2% milk, but he's fine.
People picked him. I mean, he's the pick.
I voted for him so when the primary was going on, I was a Kamala girl. I mean, she was my number one. She dropped out, and then I became an undecided voter. And I've never been an undecided voter. Like, I joke about undecided voters.
Right.
How can you be undecided?
Especially with this election.
And slowly, everyone I hopped upon, like, first I was thinking about Mayor Pete, and then I was thinking about Andrew Yang, and then I settled on Elizabeth Warren, but everyone kept dropping out of the race, you know? Yeah. So I never really got to vote for anyone who I felt strongly about, you know what I mean? I mean, in the primaries, did you see yourself as a Biden supporter?
No. And in fact, I wrote a piece for the Washington Post saying he should drop out right before he won South Carolina. So no, I did not. I liked Warren, I liked Harris, I wanted a woman, but like a lot of Democratic voters, we were all worried that a woman wasn't going to be able to win.
I know.
And so that worry, whether or not it was true, really dictated a lot of voting. And
yet they're coming to us now, and I feel like right now the parties are trying to get this women's vote. You know what I mean? Like, more than anything else. Like, you can't run. Oh, but you need our vote. You know what I mean? Right. And these undecided voters, these suburban women, are the number one, target right now of both parties. So for me, it gets me quite angry that, like, you come to me, you want my vote. Oh, but you can't put me up as a president because I'm become unlikable or a monster or a bitch or too aggressive. Yeah, but you come to me for my vote. I mean, do these people think that women can't make up their minds, or do you think that we just decide based upon more factors? Like, I'm just curious why you think this, like, female vote, this suburban vote, has not been decided yet.
I think it's an interesting, this women voters block is very interesting. And the idea that you can sort of pry it away from what else. I mean, the Trump musing about how suburban women should love him, love me, is just sort of amazing. And then you have Amy Comey, who is like,
I know.
And in fact, there's so much posturing in these hearings about how she will be a great role model for conservative women, and how hard it is to be a conservative woman, and why is it so hard to be a conservative woman, and why aren't there more conservative woman role models? And it's like being, I think a lot about how white the Republican Party is now too.
Exactly what it is.
Very male, and it's very white, because the people who really benefit from Republican policies are white men. And so that doesn't make women, and you look at some of the women in the Republican Party, and they're so fringe. I mean, even the least fringe are fringe, right? Like, I mean, Marsha Blackburn, these are not serious people. These are not real intellectuals. And so I do think that to some effect that you do the makeup of the party ends up in this Republican Party is very white, it's very male. And it's hard. I mean, I actually thought about this a lot with the Veep debates, debate, where you saw you saw Kamala, who's like dynamic
and smiling and sparkly.
Right, and sparkly and exciting, and like she's just very dynamic. And you have this woman, you have this like the excitement of an African American woman on the ticket, an Asian American woman on the ticket, but then you also have this incredible, she's just sort of fun, and she's pretty, and she has this sort of great way of speaking, and she was a prosecutor, you can just, she's just very good at this. And then you have this boring white guy who was like a shitty governor, who wasn't going to get reelected, who like and it's just like, do you want to support this exciting, do you want to make history, or you want to just have another white guy? And I think that it's hard. I think that they lose a lot of the excitement factor that the Democratic Party has.
But then you have the president, who is just a whirling dervish, you know what I mean? Who sort of tries to make up for it by mere insanity, not anything that's coherent. And it's amazing to me, too, when we talk about the female vote and who women are drawn to. I mean, these women for Trump I see on TV. Like, this guy is a predator. He's a misogynist. He judges every woman by the way she looks. It's the first thing that comes out of his mouth. He's threatened and he's dominating, yet these women are treating him like dear leader, like the cult, like it's like a cult. And I'm just also trying to figure out how they don't see him for who he is, or maybe that's the culture they live around every day and they're used to it. I don't know.
The smartest thing I've read about this is there's a woman who writes for The Guardian who's very smart, whose name is, I'm forgetting her name now, but she said white women over-identify with their oppressors. Like, it's a little bit of Stockholm syndrome.
I was going to say, it sounds like Stockholm syndrome.
Right. They'd rather be white than be female. Right. So they feel that the power from their whiteness that they get is worth the betraying of their femininity. I don't know if that's true. I mean, I have a ton of experience talking to these people, but there certainly is some kind of very odd disconnect there, where these women go all in for Trump despite everything we know about Trump.
Well, it's like Isabella Wilkerson's book. Did you read it, Caste?
No.
Oh, I really recommend it. She talks about the role of caste in our country and how we were the first place to really define caste by the color of your skin. And that is the absolute sort of identity defining sort of structural oppressive system in our country has been defined for years by just the color of skin. Even in India, it was defined by your last name because it wasn't a skin color issue. Right. And, in Germany, it was defined by your religion. It wasn't a skin color issue. So it's interesting to hear what she's saying about these women for Trump identifying much more over the whiteness they are than their femininity, and their gender, which has sort of been interesting. Because I definitely, it's something that I think about a lot. And it sort of plays into, I'm hopeful and we're all working really hard for the Democrats to take the Senate and the presidency. And then we're going to have 2 years of fast and furious legislation that they better be careful about, or it'll all be in front of the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
They better be careful how they write it. But, I'm wondering, I think about our country. I think about the people on my block that I play cornhole with. I think about that 40% of our country is sort of the member of a cult, and this cult's not going to go away. So no. I'm wondering if you've thought about like what this cult might morph into. I mean, is it just going to be OAN? Is Trump just going to buy OAN and they're going to spread lies every day to people? I mean, I'm just curious what's going to happen when this group that really was kind of marginalized in politics becomes marginalized again.
I mean, let's hope they become marginalized again. I think we'll see, certainly we're going to see, there are enough, the problem with, and maybe the good thing too, is that there's a lot of different groups in it, right? Like there's these MAGA people, and then there's this QAnon thing, which in some ways, I know it's preposterous, but in some ways that's sort of scarier because it's more divorced from reality, whereas Trumpism is shitty and it's racist and it's just doesn't make any sense. But it isn't, well, actually, that's not true. But it isn't quite as divorced from reality as QAnon, which is the idea that Democrats are eating children.
I know.
That is a whole other level of nuts. So MAGA is more like this kind of white grievance politics. It's racism, it's misogyny, it's a lot of stupidity. It's everything you see on Fox. But QAnon is a few steps more crazy than that. And so I worry about both, I would say, but it will be strange and horrible to watch what happens next. I mean, that's the problem with all this stuff is it's just so grim and it's so, I don't know how you put that genie back in the bottle.
And they have guns. Remember, this is the country of guns.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's the scarier part to me. Not that I think there's going to be a boogaloo takeover or a civil war, but the acts of domestic terrorism, I think, will, and we shouldn't even call it domestic terrorism. The act of terrorism will, you know, that's one thing that concerns me is the gun culture and the insanity of the QAnon subreddit 8chan. Right. You know,
I read something smart that said that it's not so much the idea that it'll be a civil war like the Civil War. It's more of this sort of slow moving car accident, the way the war in Ireland was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that it'll be just sort of these terrorist acts. And that this will be that's a more likely scenario. I hope it's not that, because I was in England during the 80s and it was super scary. And, you know, streets would be, you know, there'd be bombs, there'd be this, there'd be that. So I don't really want to live like that. I lived through 9/11. Like, it's not my first choice, but I could see that sounds like it might lend itself to where we've come.
I know, it is scary. It is scary. So on to a new topic, because that's just too scary. I won't sleep tonight. New York. We're New Yorkers. You were born and raised in New York, right?
Yes.
What part of New York do you live in?
I'm uptown.
Uptown. Okay. Did you decamp?
No.
Never decamped.
Yeah.
So everyone, you know, I read articles every day in the Times and the Post. New York is dead. New York is fine. New York is coming back. I mean, what I've seen over the time I've been in New York is, you know, I guess the first real tragedy was 9/11.
Yeah.
And we saw the city rebuild back there. We all came together. Then we had the Great Recession, the financial recession. We saw the city rebuild. We had Hurricane Sandy, which affected me in 2 places, that we saw the city rebuild. But every time the city comes back, it seems to come back glitzier, richer, and more corporate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see, this is the thing. I'm not like, I am not a person who, like, I don't love rich New York. It's kind of gross. Right. But I grew up in like 80s New York, so I know that rich New York is better than mugging New York.
I agree. I always said I'd love New York to come back like the 80s, except without crack and AIDS.
That's the thing. It's like, I've talked to other people my age, and we all talk about like, they were so like, when you get mugged, this is what you do. And when there's a mugging, and here's the money to pay off your mugger.
I know.
So that's why I'm not, I mean, so you don't like the rich people. It's still better than getting mugged on your way to school.
Well, I mean, again, I'm not a supply sider, but there were a lot more jobs in New York. A lot of, you know, one of the things I noticed was during the time when people were getting the extra $600 a week, I own a restaurant, and my restaurant was much more crowded with people that could not afford my restaurant before. And I was ecstatic to see them, because what I saw was people who had a lot less financial stress, at least in the moment, you know what I mean? Not worried about their rent, because these were people who were making $700 a week and now they've got 11. And just that little bit of extra cash, A, they could take their family out to dinner, you know, B, they just didn't have to worry about paying the cell phone bill, you know, because they had a somewhat of a living wage in New York. I don't know if 56,000 is really a living wage, but it was a heck of a lot better than $30,000.
Yeah.
You know? But I do think during these times of regrowth in New York, you know, we've had a great job market. So crime was way down I mean, there are lots of reasons to talk about why crime was down, but I think that people were making more money. I mean, people could support themselves, people get jobs. I mean, my concern is that, you know, we're going to have to rebuild ourselves again, and hopefully there'll be more room, and it'll be more financially reasonable for artists to come back to New York, you know, for creators, for entrepreneurs, and that city that we loved, that city where you really could be anything if you just worked hard and had a good idea, you know, comes back. But I am worried that it's going to come back, you know, as like one huge, you know, national chain, because small businesses have gone out of business.
I mean, I think a lot of people, from what I understand, have sort of, a lot of restaurants have closed, but are planning on reopening when this is over, right? Like they couldn't negotiate with their landlord, so they sort of have decided they're going to save themselves for when this is over. So, I mean, look, I'm worried. I'm very worried, and I think there's going to be a financial. It doesn't feel like this has been a well thought out situation, and Trump is a disaster, and I mean, there are just any number of problems. But I do think that New York people love New York, and there are some people who won't stay, and that's too bad for them. But I do think that most people live in cities, and I don't think cities are going to die from one pandemic. Now, if we have another pandemic, I think we could be in a lot of trouble.
Or another Sandy. You know.
Well, and there's nothing to say that we won't have. I mean, I'm not so worried about a Hurricane Sandy because we've done a bunch of years, but it's certainly true. And we did see from Hurricane Sandy that we are really not prepared for rising tides. I mean, we are a city like Miami, but luckily not as bad as Miami, but we're certainly at war with the sea. But I worry more about another pandemic, because for now, I think one pandemic, you know, it looks like there's a vaccine coming. It looks like things are getting under control with COVID. I mean, I don't think our control in the country is under control, but they're getting better at treating it. There are certain things you could see a year from now, things will look very different. But it doesn't mean with the global warming and the climate change that there won't be another pandemic right after this. I mean, hopefully there won't, but it could always happen.
I was wondering if the Trump administration was going to leave the next administration a pandemic playbook.
Yeah, I don't think they are.
Which is,
playbook is prayer.
In my fantasies, I think about what happens after Biden wins and the transition, and it's all, you know, declared and Trump concedes. I was like, are we going to have a virtual inauguration? Is Trump even going to show up to the inauguration, or any of the Republicans? And are they going to leave? Are they going to shred all the papers and reset all the computers to factory default? I mean, what is in there? I just wonder. I really do think that they're going to burn down the house, you know, before the next administration comes in.
I mean, I think they'll take the silverware with them, certainly, right? I mean, I would be shocked if Trump didn't try to steal all this, anything that wasn't, you know, like Nixon, anything that's not nailed down, he's going to try to steal. But fundamentally, I don't know. I mean, let's just get him defeated and get him out of there.
Well, we're all working really hard. Is there anything we can wrap up? Is there anything that you would like to say to anyone who's listening or who's going to listen? Any advice you can give them for the next 22 days or something?
I mean, I would say we're 20 days. And that you want to focus on, I have a couple of Senate races if you want Democrats. I mean, if you want Democrats to take back the Senate, which is really crucial to undoing Trumpism, I would say Reverend Warnock in Georgia. We just saw some really good polling. He's a great candidate. Ossoff is also in Georgia. He's a good candidate. Mike Espy in Mississippi, he's 1 point behind Cindy Hyde-Smith. You could what could be very exciting, Democrats could send 3 African-American men to the Senate, right? With Jamie Harrison, who already has boatloads of money. So I would say better off to give to Espy in Mississippi or Warnock in Georgia. But they are 3 African-American senators, which would be incredible. That would change the landscape in such a profound way. That would be really cool. And I would say look at, if you want to get a lot of bang for your buck, I would look at that Dr. Al Gross race in Georgia, in Alaska. And then another favorite of mine is Texas's first district, Hank for Texas. He's running against Louis Gohmert.
Oh God, the stupidest man in the house.
Yeah,
right?
he's amazing. Hank for Texas. It's a congressional race, but I mean, why not? Why shouldn't Texas go? I mean, Texas really could go blue if there
And
was.
Richards. Come on, Texas was not always as conservative.
No, and Texas is not so far from going blue here. So that's something to think about. MJ Hager is a really good candidate. John Cornyn really sucks. If you want to get involved in a Senate race, that's another one I would suggest.
Okay, well, that all sounds really great. Molly, thank you so much for your time and speaking with me. I, fulfilled one of my celebrity dreams for the moment. And thanks for participating in all the Woolfer forums that you do.
Well, I'm thrilled. Thank you so much for having me.
Lovely. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.